You ready, Ms. Kahn? Okay. Thank you all for being here. We are going to open with an invocation and the pledge led by Ms. Condon. If you would all stand.
Pray with me if you wish. Father God, we just thank you for bringing us here in this country tonight so that we can assemble peacefully to do the work of our school district. We appreciate the fact that not everyone in our world lives in that kind of freedom. Father, as we go about our business tonight, I pray that you will be with each speaker, that they will have words of wisdom and integrity and conduct business that needs to be done for our students and our teachers. As people go on their way to start celebrating their holidays, Hanukkah tomorrow, Christmas, Kwanzaa, that you would be with each person as they worship and they celebrate in the way that is best for them. We praise you and we just lift up this time to you. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a call to order the Clay County School Board meeting for December 16th, 2014. I'd like to welcome all the citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay. If you wish to address the board, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a card which you'll find located in the back of the room indicating the specific item number or topic that you wish to speak about and turn it in promptly, and you can bring that and give that up here to Mrs. Denise Adams. Please note that no additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the discussion agenda. Your participation is welcome and appreciated. So with that, the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. I need to note that items that have been pulled to discussion are items C7, C8, and C10. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Karakis and a second by Ms. Studdard. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. The next item is recognition and awards. We have none. There are no presenters. The next item is scheduled citizens request. We have Ms. Dana West. Ms. Dana West is going to be presenting a presentation on school nurse pay scale. You may come on up, Mrs. West.
Good evening. On behalf of the Clay County School Licensed Registered Nurses, I would like to thank the Superintendent, Mr. Van Sant, and the board members for taking the time to listen to our presentation this evening. The former Surgeon General, Joycelyn Edwards, stated, "You cannot educate a student that isn't healthy, and you can't keep children healthy who aren't educated." This statement rings true with the many Clay County School District students who have medical conditions that create obstacles while pursuing education on a daily basis. We commend the Clay County School Board for taking action in a proactive approach with the health needs of the students by having a nurse in every school. By doing so, you have added a vital and necessary service for our children that will ensure the Clay County School District vision be fulfilled. In the past 35 years, schools have been required by federal law to provide a safe learning environment for students with a broad spectrum of disabilities, for students who once would have been homebound, now are educated along with their peers. Not only do nurses handle the daily bumps and bruises of the average student, but the nurse executes care to rapidly rising population of students that have diverse and extensive medical needs. As nursing professionals, we are called upon to be the healthcare experts, the leaders, the case managers, the skilled providers of care, and the generators of income for this school district. If you look at the health conditions of our students, you can see that the nurses collect this data and submit it on a monthly basis to the Florida Department of Health. This data is compiled so that the School Nurse Health Services report can show the conditions that the students have in our district. The 2008-2009 school year is being compared to the 2011-2012 school year, which is the last year for which the complete data was available. As you can see, nursing services rose 51%. Total procedures rose 90%. Student services increased 53%. Please note the dramatic rise in medical conditions in the span of the 3 years. Some conditions almost doubled, such as cardiac condition and diabetes. As a school nurse, we are required to be healthcare experts in chronic and acute disease processes. Knowledge must be extensive in pediatric, adolescent, and adult health care. In addition to providing quality care to our students, the school nurse is available to meet the healthcare needs of the parents, staff, and community. Under the nursing paradigm, care plans are developed that reflect assessments, nursing diagnoses, interventions, outcomes, and evaluations of care. The format of this is very similar to an IEP, which you may be familiar with. School nurses provide leadership in promoting health and safety, including a healthy school environment. The licensed registered nurse provides health-related educational services to students and staff in individual and group settings, and provides consultation to other school professionals, including food service personnel, physical education teachers and coaches, and counselors. This includes, but is not limited to, teaching of bloodborne pathogen training, anaphylaxis training, diabetic training, seizures, asthma education, as well as a variety of other conditions. Responsibilities in the provision of a safe and healthy school environment include assessing the school's environment for safety to prevent injury and superheading infection control measures. The school nurse is an excellent but also underutilized resource in the development of school safety plans to address bullying, school violence, and a wide range of emergencies that occur within the school setting. The school nurse receives medical orders to guide the care, the health care needed to assist each student to be safe and successful at school. As in other clinical settings, the school nurse develops the individualized health care plan for the students in nursing language to direct nursing care for these students, as well as emergency care plans written in lay language to guide the responsibility of unlicensed assistive personnel in health-related emergencies. This would be an example of a child with seizures. Both plans are tailored to individual needs of specific students and improve expected care outcomes. The nurse makes decisions related to appropriate delegation of health care tasks as directed by the Florida Board of Nursing and the Nurse Practice Act. In addition, licensed registered nurses promote multidisciplinary care by communicating with physicians, psychologists, social workers, and counselors to provide and ensure all medical, mental, and social needs of the students of Clay County are met. The primary responsibility of the licensed registered school nurse is to provide health care to students with chronic and acute illnesses along with the first aid injuries received in the school setting. The school nurse is accountable for medication administration, health care procedures, the development of health care plans. Students have multiple needs that have to be examined in order for the student to be successful in the classroom. And school nurses engage in health screenings that include vision, hearing, body mass index, etc., based on local and state regulations to address those issues. For instance, a child who cannot see cannot read the board. Nurses have been a source of income for the school district. You will find in your presentation notebook statements from the Agency of Healthcare Administration reflecting payments made to Clay County from Medicaid billing. Clay County is consistently ranked at the top or near the top with the amount of payments received. Nursing services billed generate the highest amount of these dollars. In 2011, Clay County received $938,425.49 for nursing services billed. Yet, those services that provided care are consistently told, we have no money, when we are asking for small amounts of monetary assistance to help with professional development. Healthy students also perform higher on standardized tests. In Florida, that can equate to an A rating money for SCAT scores. The school nurse considerably contributes to this by working with student services teams to identify the effects of a medical condition may have on a student's performance and recommend appropriate accommodations. We have seen a 25% turnover of school nurses this year for those who left for a higher paying position. Several nurses have routinely watched the job boards for trends. It was noted that nursing jobs stayed vacant for many weeks and others disappeared only to reappear a short time later when that new nurse quickly left because of the poor salary. School nurses' career path in this county does not appear to have longevity. Most nurses have been in the position less than 8 years. Only 5 RNs in the district. Only 5 have been in the district greater than 10 years. This could possibly be to the low, stagnant wages and the increasing responsibility. The salary offered by Clay County creates barriers for professional development. Many cannot afford to further education, seek certification, or join professional organizations or attend state conferences. Quite frankly, it is not a living wage. An unstaffed clinic can have many serious and negative consequences. Time and money is lost when another staff member has to fill in and cannot do their job. Students suffer, especially students with special needs such as seizures, diabetes, spina bifida, cerebral palsy that need consistent, adequate professional nursing care. Studies show that higher rates of errors with unlicensed assistive personnel. Continuity of care for complex students is broken. The school district may have to pay an agency such as Maxim the rate of $45 an hour for a substitute nurse to work because a nurse cannot feel like she can support her family in that job. The licensed registered nurse of Clay County respectfully requests your consideration to be placed on the instructional salary table. Clay County nurses start at $14.55 per hour. Many counties in Florida pay their registered nurses as instructional personnel. As noted on the table, Clay County nurses are paid an average of 40% less than teachers.
Okay, Mrs. West, I believe that was your 10 minutes. Do you have much further to go, or are you about ready to wrap it up?
I have about 3 more slides.
Okay, go ahead. Allow.
Other health care related personnel or classified support employees include licensed occupational therapists and assistants and physical therapy assistants. They are assistants, yet they are paid much higher scale than our nurses, registered nurses. They only require an associate's degree. Their pay scale was adjusted 2 years ago versus 7. Their salary is 6% increase every year versus 3% of for nurses. The OT assistants and PT assistants follow the plan for occupational therapists and physical therapists. But nurses write the care plans for LPNs and unlicensed personnel to follow. We are professionals. Although different fields, the licensed registered nurse fits the definition of a professional as much as a certified teacher. A college education is required and professional development CEUs are required. There are few differences. Nurses are required to pass their state licensure examination board. A teacher is responsible for their classes, but the nurse, the whole school. A teacher has peers to assist her. Nurse often works autonomously and has no peer consult but by email. They must be able to have knowledge and experience to recognize the signs and symptoms, be they benign or requiring immediate emergency intervention. On behalf of the nurses of the Clay County School District, I thank you for your time that you allotted for us to present our appeal for instructional wages for the licensed registered nurse. With this proposal, we feel it would also be appropriate to modify the RN job description, adding the higher qualifications such as BSN preferred or experience with an associate's degree for new hired nurses. With increasing pay and qualifications, it will attract and retain higher educated and experienced nurses and encourage professional development. Not only will this county be known for its educational excellence, but also its superior medical care provided by qualified professional nurses. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. West. Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. West?
I do.
Ms.
Can I ask
Karakis.
a question? I actually want to say thank you for presenting this and sending the PowerPoint in advance. And I got several emails, I'm sure you all did, from a parent and a couple of nurses. And it really opened my eyes up to a lot of what you do. I mean, I knew you weren't just Band-Aids and gum and dog poop, but I knew that, you know, there's so much more that nurses do. I've seen firsthand from, you know, schools. My own son in the health screening, you guys caught that he needed glasses. I mean, there's so many things, and that's just a small thing compared to some of the kids that have some serious issues. But when my question was, with the licensure requirements, what are they for an RN, and is there a difference on the state board examination between a BSN RN and an ADN RN?
What is ADRN?
It's an associate's degree.
Oh,
That's
associate
two-year
degree.
degree.
There are two levels of nursing. There's a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, which I have, and the majority of the nurses, the registered nurses in the district have. And there's the associate degree of nursing. The associate degree of nursing comes from a technical school such as St. John's Community College, and the bachelor's comes from a university. I'm a graduate of Clemson University.
Hold that against you.
Okay. My son's going to Florida next year,
Just
though.
have to say Roll Tide. Okay.
Well, my nephew's a junior at Alabama.
Let me ask you something. May I interrupt? So, is the pay scale for the ADs and the ones with BS is the same?
It's the same. It's the same. You do get $1 extra for having a degree. However, they account the associate's degree, so Bachelor's of Science in Nursing gets no increase. And I would like to say I've been a school nurse in the past. I love school nursing. I made more in the 1997-1998 school year in Columbia, South Carolina than I'm making here. When I applied for this position and I looked at the pay scale and I saw that it was listed as a 2007 pay scale, I thought that was a mistake. I thought surely there had been a raise in, 7 years.
So is an RN with a BSN and an RN with an ADN, are they equal according to like the state laws that govern?
According to the state laws that govern by the Nurse Practice Act, they are equal clinically. If you, and we take the same nursing licensure board. We also have the same CEU requirements. Here in the state of Florida, it's 26 CEU requirements per every 2-year renewal period. For to work in management, you will need your Bachelor's of Science degree.
That is more
It adds more management courses and more leadership courses, research courses, that sort of thing.
So only an RN can sign off on the Medicaid?
That's
payments?
correct.
Okay, so the schools that don't have an RN, what do they do? Who goes in and signs them?
Nobody signs it.
May I ask
Yes,
something,
Ms.
Madam Chair?
Studdard.
How
There
many-
is a county nurse. Her name is Kristen Reeby. She's stretched very thin, but the ESE, that's why there's ESE programs. For instance, my school has an ESE program. Your school has an ESE program, right? Small program. My school has a rather large ESE program.
This is a lot of money, $938,000. And if I remember correctly, Mrs. Turner spoke a few months, maybe 6 months back, and I think she told us that we were like 20-something in the state for what was the number for receiving Medicaid? Wow. Well, we're doing a good job with that. Thank you.
May I ask
Ms.
another
Studdard.
question? How many of our schools have RNs versus, I guess some of them have LPNs? Is that, if they don't have an RN, do they have an LPN? Or how many of our schools have RNs in them?
I think most of them do, maybe,
Mo-
Excuse
So,
me.
and I know we don't
Time
want
out.
to get into a
Excuse
bunch of
Ms.
this back and
Studdard, yeah.
forth.
If we're going to
So-
have comments from the audience, you guys are going to need to come up and speak into the microphone. I'm sorry.
Thank you for allowing them to
Yeah,
speak.
absolutely.
I appreciate this.
Yeah. Ms.
There's-
Studdard, go ahead. You can
There's
finish.
so many things about this that I don't know, you
Mhm.
know. But this is eye-opening, and I want to commend y'all for this
Mhm.
book, which I assume is everything that you showed us. I
Yes.
think we're going to be studying that. This is something that, Madam Chairman, we have another speaker on this too? Or is there a
We
second?
no, we don't have another speaker on this topic. We do have a second speaker on a different topic. But I do have some cards up here for some people that would like to speak on this topic.
Okay.
So as soon as they're finished, I will call those names.
I'm through then. I'll
Okay,
wait.
is anybody else have any?
I'll make a comment. As a
Okay.
fellow registered nurse and a bachelor degree registered nurse, I understand the hard work it takes to earn that kind of a degree and the amount of responsibility that you bear on a daily basis. My experience was in the hospital, so it's a little bit different, but I do understand the gravity of holding somebody's life in your hands.
Well, I can tell you that I have worked in the clinical setting in the hospital too. I've been a nurse for 24 years. I worked in pediatric intensive care for 5.5 years. I worked at Shriners Hospital for 2.5 years. I've worked on a renal and liver transplant unit, and I can tell you that as a school nurse at Fleming Island Elementary, my days are just as busy as they ever were in PICU.
Can I make one more comment? And this will be my last. I just want to say thank you, and again, about the emails that I received. It opened up my eyes to how the need has changed. You know, when we were kids, there weren't peanut allergies. Not many kids had asthma. You know, there weren't very many problems, it seemed. And now, it's amazing how many you know, I don't know if you guys all read these, but it's amazing what they're dealing with day to day. How many kids are diabetic, asthmatic, need catheters? I mean, you're dealing
I have
with...
6 catheterizations, and I have 3 diabetics getting 9 blood sugars per day.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking such good care of our kids. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Okay. So I have, I believe, 3 cards for people who would like to speak to this particular item. I'll start with, forgive me if I say this wrong, is it Brandy Foster? Come on in. Brandy, please state your name and your address for the record.
Brandy Foster, 618 Hawks Island Drive, Fleming Island, Florida.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. These ladies pretty much said everything I'm going to say, but I'm going to add a few extra things. I'm at Patterson Elementary. I've been there for 7 years. I love my job. The reason why I would leave my job is because of the pay. If there's a time and a need in my family, I would leave because of the pay. And it's a shame because the job is just the best. And I'm sure teachers tell you the same thing. They're in it because they love the kids. our job is not Band-Aids and Bactine. It's more than that. Who are they going to call when there's a medical emergency? It's not the janitor. It's not a teacher. They call us. It is our job to know what to do, and we better do it quickly and efficiently and safety. Safety is the most utmost important thing when it comes to the children. I'll give you an example of something I had to, sort of an emergency situation. I had a diabetic whose blood sugar was over 600. His pump stopped working. His parents were 2 hours away. I had no insulin there at the school. So I opened his pump, and I took a syringe, and I withdrew the insulin out of the reservoir, and then I gave it to him, just to bring his blood sugar down, because I was close to having to call rescue for him. His parents, I mean, the father came in crying because he couldn't believe what we had done to make sure their son was safe. We're caregivers. Not only do we take care of kids' medical needs, I've fixed shoes, I have dealt with dental issues, I have the optometrist, I've fixed glasses, I've cleaned up more throw up and more poop than you can ever imagine. I've sewed buttons on, I've sewed holes in clothes because I didn't have anything to give kids. I have 930 students at my school, and I did an average of the last 3 years, and I see the last 3 years average 9,646 kids in my clinic a year. I give about 2,589 medicines a year. That's a 3-year average. I do health screenings because I'm an elementary school. I attend ESC meetings. I attend IEP meetings. I do ESC screenings so they can go on and get their services met for the kids. They have to have their vision and hearing has to be at a certain a standard that they require before they can move on to their next step in their services. So I would just ask that you guys would think about our salaries. It's been since 2007, 2008, since there's been an adjustment. So thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. The next item, Alicia Prentice. Were you wanting to speak on this topic as well? Okay. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Alicia Prentice, and I live at 1244 Harbor Town Drive, Orange Park. And I also want to speak on behalf of the nurses, although they've said so much and you have so much to look at and consider already. I work at Oakleaf Junior High. I'm one of the 2 nurses there. I have an LPN as well. Each day we see an average of 80 students in our clinic, and some days we see over 100. Like all the other nurses in the county, we care for the medical and psychosocial needs of our school staff and students with professionalism and compassion. We are all educated professionals who each bring our training and unique experiences to your schools and communities. We work the same schedule as our exceptional teachers do, and we often bring work home with us as well. Unlike teachers, we have no lesson plans to rely on. Our clinic is our classroom, and we must be ready to provide whatever lessons our students need at the moment they need it. We provide health education and health care to any who need us, and we are mindful of the fact that we may be the only healthcare professionals that some of our students have access to. We respond to emergencies on a regular basis, and if an AED ever needs to be used, you're looking at one of the faces who's going to put it on. Our fellow nurses have worked very hard to collect and report statistics on the salary of school nurses in surrounding counties, and as you can clearly see, Clay County does not come close to paying its nursing staff a fair wage. It is in the best interest of our students and our communities to have continuity of care in the school setting. Many nurses leave the county when a better paying position becomes available. I feel that our children deserve to have familiar and dedicated nurses in their schools, and they rely upon us to advocate for them. We build a trusting relationship with our students, parents, and staff members and communities, and we respectfully request that our pay scale be reevaluated and amended to reflect our essential role in Clay County schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do want to just make one comment, not a question. I am overwhelmed at this presentation, and I know that this is, I think Miss Turner, I know she's been to see us a few times, and you know, honestly, you speak and we say, and we go on. But this is eye-opening, and this is something that I think we're remiss in this. We need as a board to look at this and address it and see if we can't figure out a way to correct some things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next speaker on this topic is Miss Linda Turner. You may come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Perennial Miss Turner.
Linda Turner, 1231 Salt Marsh Lane. I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I won't go all over this again, because, anyway. It seems as though sometimes the pay scale that we have for some of the different positions is very arbitrary, and if you really value education, that should reflect in the pay. It's really insulting that a painter with 5 years of experience starts at a higher wage than a registered nurse. Be 32, 5 years, okay? And I'm not saying the painter is making too much money, not at all. I'm saying that we're just not making enough. For the responsibilities that we have, the kids that we see, I mean, all the little things that we do, like, for example, a little boy comes in and he's filthy dirty every day, and the teacher asks you to do something, so you provide clothes. You know they don't have a washing machine at home, so you take the laundry home, you do it for them, you bring it back to them the next day so that the kids won't make fun of him because he smells. I mean, those are just little things. That doesn't mean I should get paid more for that, but that's just one of the little things that we do. I really appreciate you all taking the time to look at that folder, and there's a lot of little things in there. Little anecdotes, little stories, and it really will open your eyes to school nursing. I've been a school nurse now for 9 years, and I've been a neonatal intensive care nurse, and I just have a heart for children. I wouldn't, you know, I would leave this job because I will retire one day, but I would hate to leave my students, especially when I have a diabetic, and every year they're like, are you going to be there next year? Because the parents are counting on me. Anyway, thank you.
I have a comment to make.
Go ahead.
I don't know if everybody remembers Mr. Van Zant, Mrs. Duttard. You probably remember, but Mrs. Turner was our School-Related Employee of the Year 3 years ago. And I happened to be on that committee, so I read everything that she has. And I was so impressed with all the professional development that she pays for on her own. Takes personal time, uses her days to go down to, I think several of them were in Orlando, if I'm right. And it would be a 2-day or 3-day conference that she paid for to go get this training. In addition, and you'll have to help me with this, she was recognized by Mr. Miller because she had knitted a scarf for every child or so in the school. So, because they were cold, and she just decided, so in her spare time at home, I guess she's sitting down knitting. And it's just many things that she does, but she's not the only nurse in our district who's paying for their own professional development. And we appreciate that they do that, but we really do need to address this. They need to be recognized as professionals, and it's something that as a board we need to look at. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just have a question. In this binder, is there any information about the other district models as far as how many nurses they have and what?
Can you, I'm sorry, but can you come back up to the microphone and speak? Apologize. And then, again, state your name and address for the record.
Jean Sermons, 3200 Litchfield Lane. What's difficult about Florida is every county is different. One county, all the nurses are DOE, another it's DOH, some are half and half. I believe it's Palm Beach County are all, or many, I believe like 200 nurses are publicly funded. So on the Department of Health website, you can look county by county on those sheets where it gives you the information of what the nurses do each county, of how it's broken up. I did put in that notebook like a job description for Pasco County and one for Palm Beach County and their wages along with that.
That would be very helpful. I'm sure you guys are aware, and it's been in the newspaper, that our fund balance is very low. We're in violation of state law at the moment because it's less than 3%. So the issue here is how do we, not that you guys don't deserve more pay, but how do we fund that? So I'd be interested to see what other models look like throughout the state.
Like I said, some do have public, like hospitals. Even from what I understand, the Moose Club in Palm Beach County pays for every single nurse to be a member of Florida Association of School Nurse, which is also affiliated with the National Association of School Nurses.
Well, this is definitely, in my opinion, something we need to look at.
And from what I understand, I think Pasco County is one where they have an additional tax built in to pay the nurses. They have quite a few.
It sounds like there's lots of options.
Yeah.
There's several models for us to look at and compare notes and look into, but we will make it a priority.
Okay. Anybody else? I just want to thank all of you guys for coming. I appreciate the presentation that was sent to us in advance. I did get a chance to look through it, and I myself, my eyes were open. I remember when Ms. West came and spoke to us before. I'm sorry, Ms. Turner came and spoke to us before, and I just looked at it a little bit differently this time, and I can hear the passion in your plea. And so I just want to thank you for taking the time to put all this together, to come out and to speak to us. And I think everybody here agrees that it is definitely something that that we should probably try to go look at. So,
I mean, I don't know, probably the superintendent might want to maybe get some information that he can render from staff for us, but I don't know if we eventually want to have a workshop on this or something so we can really get into the meat of it and discuss it, sometime after the first year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking in January is the time to start looking at what kind of workshops do we want to have, and this is definitely one that I think would be worthy of having a workshop and taking a look at it. So I'm totally open to that. I know Ms. Gilhausen.
It's something that is not just concerning to nurses, but to the parents of these students that are receiving the care.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you, my oldest child developed juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when she was 4. She's now 47. But today, she has a shoulder, 2 hips, 2 knees, 2 ankles replaced, and lives with a lot of pain. But as she was going through school here in Clay County, the physical therapist, and it was a level of comfort knowing that whichever school she was in, that there was someone there who would, help. And when we had that work day back a month or 2 ago, and I was in the ESE classroom at Ridgeview, when you see all the different, I mean, you couldn't list a list from here to the door, all the different types of things that people deal with each day. But this is something that I'm glad to hear that the board, I mean, we've got some very serious budget considerations, but we also need to look at maybe some adjustments.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next item up is our next 10-minute speaker, Teresa Clough. Is that it? Teresa is going to be speaking on the topic of substitute teachers. Please state your name and address for the record, Ms. Clough.
Teresa Clough, 7628 Gorgine Road, Jacksonville. About this time last year, the board signed a contract with Kelly Educational Services. The effect that this has had on us as subs, for me, has been pretty detrimental this year. By this time of the year, I'm working 3 to 5 days a week, full days. I have worked 16 days since 12 August. You're a small county, 41 schools, am I correct? I called district when I heard the rumor that this was in the making. And the figure I was given, which was an estimate, was there was approximately 800 subs employed by the district prior to going with Kelly. And not all of them were working. You signed the contract. Next thing that happened, all these new subs came into Clay County. I've been here 5 years. This is the hardest year I have had yet. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Kelly, I worked for Kelly Educational in Duval County for 4 years before I came into your county. One of the main reasons I chose to come into Clay County was because you were not with Kelly. For a county like Duval, they have almost 200 schools. You just really can't manage a county or district that large any other way. But Clay County has 41 schools. Well, let me tell you the advantage to having your 41 schools and letting the schools call their subs instead of outsourcing. The person at the school level that manages and scheduling the subs knows those subs. They talk to them every day. They develop a rapport. The principals get to know us. They know who they're sending in a classroom. They know what the expectation is going to be in that classroom that day for that sub. Something goes awry, you know, nothing serious, but just maybe something doesn't make everybody happy. The principal or the secretary or the vice principal, someone just makes mention of it, we move forward. With Kelly, a do not send is sent. Doesn't matter what the situation is. Doesn't matter. Once that do not send is sent, it's on that sub's record. 3 of those, that sub is terminated. Because you see, it doesn't matter why the sub did what they did. It doesn't remove it. I could tell you some stories out of Duval County, but I won't. I shared some with some of you because I've spoken with 3 out of the 5 of you sitting up there. There's no drug testing done. Of course, the county didn't either, but you're responsible for yourselves. Now you're outsourcing. Your liability is with someone else. They don't drug test. Budget's in crisis. Health Care Act came into being. I was told the reason that Kelly Educational was brought in was because of the Health Care Act. Well, let's talk about that a moment. And forgive me if I'm not correct. This is my understanding. Health Care Act was supposed to provide insurance for everyone. Employers who had full-time employees were required to offer and make available health care benefits. Notice, offer and make available. Doesn't mean I have to take it. Just means you have to offer it and make it available. About that time, there were a lot of full-time employers that worked 40 hours a week, cut their full-time back to 37 and a half. Because if you worked 38 hours a week, you were considered full-time, which meant as the employer, you were required to offer these benefits. We were not necessarily required to be offered these benefits as substitute teachers because the reason we're called substitute teachers is because we're on call. I can't just show up at Oakleaf Junior High every day and get paid. Somebody has to call me and say, would you please come in for me? I need you to be in this place today for me to get paid. So a full week for me anyway is going to be 37 hours. It's under 37 and a half. How many of your subs are retired military? Have TRICARE? How many are covered under their spouse's benefits? How many are on Medicare? And if they're not on any of that, or might even have VA, like I do, and if they don't fall in any of those categories, that's why they had all these Health Care Act plans out there, so people could go online, find the plan that fit them and their budget. So I'm sorry, I can't believe that's the reason that we outsourced. We are so limited in the classroom. Kelly's policy, go in, follow the plan, and go home. When we worked for the district, we went in the classroom, we were teachers. We weren't babysitters. We developed rapport with teachers, and they would leave us to take care of the class. If we ran out of work, we'd give them something else. They trusted us that what we supplemented with was educationally beneficial for those students. I don't do half days anymore except at a couple of schools, and outside of that for some of the teachers I've been with for a while. I'll be honest, $12 an hour, I live in Marietta. It's just not worth $36 minus taxes to make myself look good, use my gas, the wear and tear on my car, to go clear about $25 to $30. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for Clay County. The schools did such a better job. We made more money, and our salary was cut to be able to pay Kelly Educational. Now, the three of you that I spoke with on the phone, I used the analogy that if my household budget was in crisis, I'm not going to hire somebody to come in and clean my house. The budget's in crisis. I believe that. I believe that. I've been in this 9 years. I believe every word of that. So why are we outsourcing? I don't know what you're paying Kelly, but I guarantee you it's a pretty penny. And I can't believe you saved $800,000 by lowering our salaries. Because my question for that is, did you deduct Kelly's cost from that $800,000 that you're saving? Because if you didn't, you're not saving $800,000. I personally feel, a lot of others feel, that Kelly is not good for Clay County. The schools aren't happy, and I say that understanding there are exceptions to every rule. Schools aren't happy, teachers aren't happy, and subs aren't happy. Why would you keep something that makes for a different kind of work environment? I do this because I love this. I wake up every morning to go into a classroom. And I enjoy working in Clay County. We have a wonderful county. We really do. But Kelly Educational is not for us. It's really not. I would like to see you, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this after listening to them because they're paid less than we are, but to move us back up to where we were and terminate Kelly Services. Put us back like we were. We were good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clough. I do have one question for you. Mrs. Clough, I do have one question for you. You mentioned that you've only worked 16 days since August. Is that because the pool of substitute teachers has grown beyond what it originally was before we went to Kelly?
It is almost impossible to pick a job up online. It really is. And I expanded my boundaries when we went with Kelly just to increase my opportunities to work. But with the pay drop $12 an hour, I'm not driving to Green Cove. You know, I'm not driving to Keystone. I'm not driving to Middleburg. So I have selected schools. And yes, 16 days.
So 16 days isn't because that's all you've been offered. It's just that that's what has been
That's pretty much, that's what I've known has been available.
Okay.
Okay? I'll give you an example. I worked with a sub last Friday, and she was trying to pick a job up on her phone, and she couldn't get it. And she called Kelly, and she said something to them, and this happens often. And she said something to them, but I just can't pick them up quick enough. And she said Kelly's attitude was basically, we just need to be faster. You know, I called and complained at the beginning of the year about not, you know, I said, are people posting? And she said, oh, it'll get better.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Could I make a comment?
One comment, yeah.
You know, when this came up about going to Kelly, it is true that the reason the board decided to do it was because of the Health Care Act, and we were told that we would save $800,000, I believe was the number, should we go to Kelly. With our budgetary constraints, I guess we felt that, you know, that's $800,000. We've got to do this. But not in the last month or two, but I have in the past received some phone calls about Kelly services, and then I would in turn call Dr. Michael Henry to inquire about it, or at least relay to him, you know, the concerns out there. And it seemed, because one thing that we were assured of on the board was that even if Kelly, if we did employ Kelly, that as far as the schools went, that the principal and the people there at the school would still, we were told this over and over, you'll still be able to use your regular subs, because as this lady said, they know, they have their favorite subs, they get to know them, they almost get to be like one of the faculty there. The principals are comfortable, the other teachers are comfortable, they know the kids, the kids know them, and so it's a homey feeling. The phone calls I've had, the majority of them have been because our regular subs who have subbed a lot over the years, all of a sudden couldn't get to the schools where they were subbing on a regular basis. And Dr. Henry always looked into it, and he would get back with me, and he would say, you know, this isn't going to be a problem anymore. I've talked to Kelly, and they're going to take care of it. And I haven't heard any complaints recently, but it rang a bell when she stated this. The health care situation, the $800,000 was the carrot. That was the only reason that I was supportive of it, just to save money and being assured that we would have, quote, the same quality subs that we had had before. But one thing I do want to know is, she said they were making $12 an hour now. What were they making before per hour? Anybody know? $14.66. Okay. Okay. Well.
Okay.
I have a comment, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Carrigan.
What Mrs. Studdard said is true. We have gotten many phone calls from substitute teachers, and the reason that I voted for it also was because of the cost savings. I also have gotten phone calls from school secretaries. They are not able to get their Clay County subs that they want, even though they try to get them, as Kelly has already filled them with somebody else. And I also have talked to Dr. Henry about it and was assured that it would be taken care of. And like Mrs. Studdard, probably in the last month, no phone calls at all. But then we were out for Thanksgiving, and, you know, I'm not sure if they've corrected the problem or not, but I would like to ask that this be readdressed somehow. Maybe we can get an update from Dr. Henry telling us, you know, is it still necessary, what the cost savings are, have they worked out all the problems? We need some information about this, because we are listening, but we're doing nothing. We're hearing the complaints and we're doing absolutely nothing about it and just letting it continue. So if Kelly Services is not the right fit for us, and our subs in Clay County, I'm thinking Orange Park Elementary is a perfect example. A friend of mine, when my kids were there, subbed all the time. She knew every one of those kids as they came through 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. They wouldn't dare cross her because she was the teacher that day. It wasn't babysitting, as you're saying, and I respect that. So I would like to ask that this come back to us as an item for us with an update, and let's see the dollars and cents and compare. Is it still that cost savings that we were led to believe it would be?
Yes,
Comment,
Dr.
please.
Copeland, go ahead.
Let's back up a couple of years when the Affordable Health Care Act came out. The requirement that and we spend as a district, the district portion, about 17 to 18 million dollars on behalf of our employees. That does not include the employee contribution depending on the plan that they take.
Talking about on health care.
Yes, ma'am, just health care. The Affordable Health Care Act gave a requirement and put it on the backs of the school district and any employer that had in excess of, I think it's 50 employees. We had the responsibility to monitor the time that these substitutes had, and if they exceeded 30 hours in a week, or is it a month? A week. Then we were required to provide, offer, whatever you want to call it, health care insurance, full pay, approximately $5,000 worth. First of all, for us to monitor these substitutes so that they don't exceed 30 hours would be astronomical amount of time, almost because they work in different schools. And to be able to administer that responsibility, and if they exceeded it at any time, sorry, they've exceeded it. We felt, and our recommendation is that the expense of not worrying about the 30 hours, provide the health insurance, was huge. The cost would be several $million. We just couldn't take that on. We spend now, or did spend prior to the Affordable Health Care Act going into effect, over $3 million just on substitute cost. So it became an economic decision. I'm not sure it's the best, but economically, then it became in the best interest of the school district to control our cost. Now, the $800,000, and Ms. Adams can speak to this, is that this school district was paying probably one of the very highest cost for substitute cost. And so when you start cutting, you look at what are we paying? Well, it became necessary for us to find places where we can cut our expenses. And we felt like if we lowered the pay, then we could save approximately $800,000. And that is built into this budget. So I think we just need to understand how this all came about, and that, I don't know if Kelly's the greatest thing on earth in monitoring this, but that's what we had to do. And you know, sad as it may be, that's what we had to do.
Could I ask Dr. Copeland a question?
Yes.
Dr. Copeland, what do we pay Kelly Services each year?
Well, my secretary monitors that expense. I'll tell you this, that it will be expensive because there's an add-on cost. But when you compare the cost that it could have been based on the 30-hour limit that we had to control, it's a lot less than what the potential cost could have been. Yes, we are paying probably more than we normally would for the cost of substitute costs because of the add-on charge to Kelly. But the overall cost is a lot less than if we had to monitor it, because that would be difficult to keep it at the 30 hours or less, and that would frustrate people. It would frustrate them to no end that we cut them off because they're approaching 30 hours. Ms. Adams, you may have a better feel for that than I do.
If you'd like to, Ms. Adams. Go ahead. Yes.
When Ms. Finley and I analyzed the cost inclusive of the long-term subs, we found, along with what we refer to as the upcharge or the overhead of utilizing Kelly Services, that we came out about the same.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask Ms. Adams or Dr. Copeland a question? What is this add-on charge? Is it, I forget, is it a percentage of
It's an administrative cost.
and
It's a percentage, and it's in the contract that you signed, but I can't quote it tonight.
yeah. Well, what I would like, if you would, I'd like to, if you would send us, the board, some information about the...
Mrs. Studdard, if you can direct that, I'll have the superintendent provide whatever...
Okay, let me request this. I'd like to know about the add-on charge and what we're doing, and I'd like to know what we're paying Kelly Services a year.
Okay. Very well.
I think that would be beneficial to the board.
Can I make
Okay.
a request as well?
It can come from wherever you want it to come from.
Can we just see a side-by-side cost
Yes.
analysis that they did so that we can compare?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
good.
Mr. Van Zandt, go ahead.
I'll be happy to gather whatever information you want, and we'll go back and listen to your comments here tonight and gather up something for you. I would ask again to all of you to call me, your board members. I'm the superintendent. I'm kind of your relief valve and gasket between you and the district staff. If I know that one or two or three board members are concerned about subs or nurses or anything else, I can prepare that. I can make sure the directors don't do double work. If one or two board members want to know about it, probably all five of you want to know about it. That way I can push information out and make you all aware. As I work with the chairman, we can agenda things. So I would stress to board members that you call me when you have these questions so I can save us all time. A big savings in the district would just be to make sure the work is done in an orderly fashion. I don't have my highest paid administrators doing the same thing repetitively. That would help a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move in. That's it for the scheduled citizens request. We are going to move into the discussion agenda. And at this time, I'd like to make a last call for any speaker cards. No other speaker cards? Okay, very well. We're going to move into the discussion agenda. Before we do, though, I have a request to move items D9, D10, D11, and D12 to the front. And Mr. Copeland, is everybody's okay with that? I'm sorry, Dr. Copeland, if you'd like to go ahead and come on up and...
I appreciate the board allowing us to do that. Members of the board, it's a pleasure tonight to be able to present to you the refinancing of a couple of our COPs. I would like to introduce Mr. Jerry Ford and Mr. Mark Raymond, who has given considerable support. And Mr. Ford, if you would like to come up to the podium. Mr. Ford is the financial advisor in these COPs. Mr. Mark Raymond is the bond attorney. Over quite a bit of time, we have been reviewing the process of refinancing these COPs because they've met the time length that allows us to do it, approximately 10 years, 2004, 2005, approximately 10 years. And we have been able to secure a nice savings to the school district. However, we need to understand that this savings is not in the general fund, but it's in Mr. Merrill's fund in capital outlay, because the reduced cost reduces the amount of debt service that we have to pay, and of course that helps him. So there's a process that we have to follow this evening. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Ford. I've worked with Mr. Ford and Mr. Raymond for a long time, and they have been a significant amount of support in helping us save money for the Clay County citizens and for this school district. So, Mr. Ford, it's a pleasure to have you here with us this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Copeland. For the record, I'm Jerry Ford with Ford & Associates. We are the board's financial advisors. Mr. Superintendent, members of the board, thanks for having us here tonight. As is the normal course of what we do on your behalf, along with Mr. Raymond, we monitor all of your outstanding debt on a regular basis and look for opportunities for you to refinance it at lower rates. A word about that term refinancing, because people normally associate it with what they do with their home mortgage, and it's a little bit different. Like your home mortgage, yes, we go out and we refinance at a lower rate, but there's a couple of things we don't do. We don't extend the mortgage. It pays off on the same date that it was originally designed to mature, so it doesn't keep going forever and ever as you chase a lower rate. So the financings that we're talking about tonight will not extend your debt. It leaves them to mature as they were originally. It just does so at a lower cost. In looking at this transaction, we looked at whether or not you would best benefit by going out to the public markets and bringing in underwriters and developing offering documents similar to a stock prospectus and selling them to the public at large and to institutional investors, or whether we could do a private placement. We looked at both. We got a very attractive private placement offer from Raymond James Bank, and all in all, that was the best, lowest cost transaction for the school district. And so that is the one we recommended to this board, and that is the result of the financing that you see tonight. Specifically, we're refinancing $17,120,000 of the original 2004A and 2005A COPs. Just for your information, those funded Oakleaf and Ridgeview. The building that you're sitting in tonight was funded by a later COP issue. At least the first floor of this facility was funded by that COP issue. You make payments for this each year out of your capital outlay millage, that 1.5 mil levy you have, and it will continue on until it is finished. During that time, you do not actually own this facility. The leasing corp owns it. They own all facilities that you've done with COPs since 1997. Should you on any given year exercise your right to walk away and say, no, I want to cancel my lease, I'm going home, then you have the pleasure of being able to give back every school and every improvement that's under that master lease, including the building you're sitting in and Oakleaf and Ridgeview. So yes, you have the legal right to walk away from that lease. From a practical standpoint, not so much. So you need to be aware of that. So what did we accomplish at the end of the day? Well, you got an interest rate of a 279 from the bank. On an all-in basis, it's about 288. That's down from the 441 level, and you save over $1.5 million on a present value basis after all cost. That translates into more than 8.9% of the bonds that you refinanced. Your normal threshold is no less than 3%, so it is almost 3 times that normal threshold, and it will save you between $140,000 and $150,000 a year in your debt service costs that will be available for other capital projects. So you will be asked to adopt a resolution tonight. That resolution contains all of the supporting documents that need to be approved in order to put this financing in place. If you have any questions, we can answer those about the specific documents. If you have questions I can't answer, I'll ask Mr. Raymond, who drafted all of them, to come up here and answer them for you. But that is what is in front of you at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman, at this point, it would be necessary for the board to look at D9.
Yes.
and to ask that a motion and a second on to consider adopting the resolution as it reads there.
Okay. So on D9, we need a motion for the school board to consider adopting this resolution authorizing the sale of certificates of participation, Series 2014, in a principal amount of not exceeding $17,750,000 for the purpose of refunding all or a portion of the certificates of participation, Series 2004, and all Series 2005A in order to achieve the debt service savings. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Studdard and a second by Ms. Karakis. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Yes, okay, the next item is D10, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to recess the regular school board meeting and convene a meeting of the Board of Directors for the Clay County School Board leasing. So the Clay County School Board meeting is in recess, and at this time I would like to convene a meeting of the Board of Directors for the Clay County School Board Leasing Corporation. Dr. Copeland?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This board, as adopted in 1997, also becomes the leasing corporation on behalf of these COPs. So the superintendent is the secretary to this leasing corporation, and now that we have recessed, we need now to do D11, and as a leasing corporation, you adopt the same resolution, but we need to go through that process.
Okay.
So just a couple of items for those of you who haven't been through this before. I mentioned a few minutes ago that the school board does not own these facilities. Who owns them? The leasing corporation owns them. But you give up all your right in these facilities during the time that we're financed. To this young lady right back here who is with U.S. Bank, they are the trustee. So if in fact the school board ever exercised its right to non-appropriate, she would step in and they would take over the facilities for the benefit of the investors.
Okay, thank you.
I move approval.
Let me go ahead and state the motion first. So item D11, we need a motion for the Board of Directors of Clay County School Board Leasing Corporation to consider adopting the resolution authorizing the sale of Certificate of Participation, Series 2014, in a principal amount of not exceeding $17,750,000 for the purpose of refunding all or a portion of the Certificates of Participation, Series 2004, and all Series 2005A in order to achieve the debt service savings.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Studdard and a second by Ms. Condon. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appreciate that. At this point, I would recommend that we, since we are in the capacity of the
Leasing
Corporation, that we sign these documents.
Okay.
It will require on a few documents that Ms. Condon and the rest, the four of you, come and sign first. And those documents will be right here on this table. Once you are completed signing, the four of you, then it will be necessary for the chairman and for the superintendent to come sign these documents. I've already signed the necessary things that I need to sign. So since we are in this capacity, and before we reconvene back into the regular board meeting, if we could take care of this, it shouldn't take very long at all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay.
Do it now.
Ladies?
Ms. Karakis, Ms. Gilhousen.
You get to go home, right?
No, I get to go down to Vieira because I've got to get for Bard schools and Indian River schools in the morning. Good to see you. I think we were at 5 different school boards today.
just like mom.
I know it.
It doesn't have last
All right. Is the superintendent with us? Okay.
I'm going to go to the ladies' room.
She hit me. She said she hit me.
I did, and
I figured.
Yeah, they did a good job. Look at this notebook. All this information.
Yeah, I figured.
Jerry, just to point out, cases might cover these,
Oh, here I go sinking again. Got it. Yeah, I mean, really, Janice used to bring one of those little, those little kid step stools to put her feet on because she couldn't. Oh.
there's a girl's room and a boy's room. And he'll have this little area for No, I was there on the first day, but I sit in the chair. Anyway, I did get her what it's worth on that one. Is there another one? Oh, you're so
Just keep flipping them over. Yeah, order in an order.
So they don't ask me to do that, or I get it all.
You know what kind of race you're paying?
No. Take a guess.
Merry Christmas.
How many kids do they have?
but it's really not.
I try to practice law, he tries to be an FA.
So now we're just doing the same setup again. Well, I'm glad.
Two of us have.
No, I have.
Well, technically speaking.
I've been checking every morning in the mirror.
That we have to record. So my statement to you is we don't need to record the recesses. Yes. Okay. Okay.
I'm going down to the area tonight.
Okay.
Down there in Brevard. I can't ever say his last name.
Basically, it's got to be staffed first. Bring my commands in, and then I'll be happy. That's basically the request. It's got to go to the system first, and then whatever we need to do, we'll do. Now, I have not, Mr. Bickner has gone over, I haven't looked at the contract. Basically, he had that, so I don't even. Yep. But my point, Mr. Bickner had it, so he didn't give me whatever his opinion is. I'm not going to interfere with it. If he says it's good, it's fine by me. Amend the contract. It's going to have first to go through the superintendent, and then if he wants to do that, then essentially then I'm directing to begin that process. It's got to go first. Are they interested? Is the school board interested?
I used to have that on cassette.
They'll basically direct me to it. No, it's a matter of it's a business. Right. Right. And if they want to make the amendment, then we make it. Because once the contract is in place, okay, it's basically it's called a novation, okay. And if you have two people sign the contract, they both kind of have to give up something to agree to change. And so to do that, the board has got to basically. Those two boards have to make that decision. So it starts off with him, and then it goes to the board, and the board's telling me to do it, and I'll be happy. We're doing things in the government all the time. No, it's not a permit. It's a business decision made by the board. Give me a call anytime you need to talk to me. Thank you.
Good. I'm very pleased with the job you started. It was 2 years ago. He had just
Okay, at this time, I'd like to move on to item D12. I'm going to adjourn the special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Clay County School Board Leasing Corporation, and at this time, we will reconvene the regular school board meeting. With that, we will move on to discussion item number D1, Superintendent's Update. Mr. Van Zandt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we started last month, every time we get together, I'd like to give you updates on where we are instructionally. And tonight, I'd like to call Ms. Cornegie to talk with you for a few minutes.
We're so excited about this.
If you're having trouble, Dr. Copeland can help you with that technology, I have no doubt.
He is just so excited to hear about this tonight that he can hardly stand himself. So you may have heard Clay County ranks 8th. You're probably wondering, 8th in what? So I just briefly wanted to tell you why we're excited that we rank 8th. Because we are the 8th highest school district in improving student performance on our state assessment. So this is called the VAM, the Value Added Model, and you may have heard of it because it's been a bit controversial. It has 3 components. There's a teacher component, which is the controversial part because of how it is used in teacher appraisal, and also because there's some factors within the formula that are beyond the teacher's scope of influence or control. So while the state does apply a standard error of measure to compensate for that, we know that in some cases, based on the needs of kids, it may be a bit understated or overstated. So to say that it is an estimate would be a true statement. What is less controversial, however, because it really focuses at the heart of the formula, which is the student growth portion, is the school VAM and the district VAM. So your 3 components are your teacher, your school, and your district. So our district VAM is what we ranked 8th in the state with, out of 67 school districts. So that's pretty impressive. So I just want to tell you real quickly what VAM represents. So it looks at student growth over time. So a student with a previous year or an average of 3 years, they'll do an aggregate of 3 years if they have that much data on a student. But the student, they look at a lot of different factors, each individual student, and they do a projected developmental skill score on every student and how they will perform on the reading and math portion of the FCAT or our new state assessment. So for every child, they look at a couple of different things. So they'll consider all the unique factors of a child. So they'll look at the number of retentions a child has, their mobility rate, whether they're an ESE student, whether they're gifted, ELL learners, all those different factors. And they take all of the students within the state who has those same identical factors, including their prior year student scores, and they factor them and average them together to come up with a predicted growth for that individual child. So this is just an example of a 3rd grade student who scored a developmental scale score in the previous year of a 250, and based on all those little unique factors, a little mysterious, but they predicted that their developmental scale score, the growth for them would be 285. So your value added is the difference between the predicted growth and the actual growth, which if we look at, I don't have a clicker, a score of 0 for each child, that's a year's worth of growth. So they did no better or worse. They did about what they had predicted that they would do. And any positive VAM shows that they exceeded the expected growth, and any negative score they did worse or less than they were projected to do based on those unique characteristics in their previous year scores. So if we look at the top 8, what this represents is that our district did rank 8th overall in the average score based on growth. So if we think about our schools and we look at the average of each school, I do want to say that Clay High School was our highest ranking VAM school, followed by Fleming Island High and Fleming Island Elementary. Also in our top 10 were 2 of our Title I schools. So we had 3 high schools in the top 10, and the rest of them were our elementary schools. But I want you to notice something on here, and I don't want to take anything away from those 7 others that are listed here. If you look at the number 1 and number 3, those are lab schools, university schools, and you look at their you look at their students tested in comparison to ours at 50,000 kids, and you also look at some of those smaller counties ahead of us who tested only about 1,700 and 1,800 kids. And really, you look at St. John's, Collier, and Clay, and you also look at our demographics in comparison. We really rank up there in the top 3 in terms of the numbers of kids that were tested and the like demographics of our kids, which are quite different than those in our lab schools and in some of those other districts. So in my mind, I'm going to say that we're kind of in the top 3, but 8 sure isn't bad either. So really, this is just an opportunity to say thank you and congratulations to our schools and our teachers, because this is representative of our teachers' work and their ability to improve our student performance. And so I think that in this time of this season of giving, they certainly give a special gift to our kids, and that is that student growth and performance. And so congratulations to all of our teachers and our staffs and administrators at our schools for the great job that they've done consistently over the past 3 years when VAM began. We started with an average VAM score of 7.26 2 years ago, and this is representative of 7.96% increase. So that's a pretty significant increase over time, and certainly in the right direction as we continue to move forward with, as we keep saying, moving from good to great. So thank you all, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cornegie. I do have a question for you real quick. You mentioned there were 3 components to the VAM model. You may have said it and I missed it, but I caught the teacher was one of them. Teachers, what were the other 2 components?
School and the district.
The school and the district. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Van Zandt?
Okay.
Yes. I shared this in a much more abbreviated way with Zero PowerPoint with our Clay County Legislative Delegation that met at 4 today in Green Cove. We had a very busy afternoon. We had our Florida Youth Challenge Academy at Camp Blanding also hold a graduation this afternoon. And I just wanted to update the board because we were all at different places today. I did thank our legislative delegation for the help they've given us with Florida Youth Challenge. They were in dire straits financially and having to take some of their money away from other projects to help us fund teachers. And our legislative delegation worked very closely with us over the last 2 years, and that resulted in about $750,000 of money that we needed to resource the instructional personnel that we have out there. So that's a good news story. I shared with them where we are. I've had a couple of our legislators in the district a couple of times. They're very complimentary of our staff. They mentioned Ms. Cornegie and Ms. Weiskopf and a few others by name today. There's so much to do in a school district. I haven't let them talk to anybody outside of instruction because that was the first area we really needed to address moving into a new assessment system. And I asked them to do what this board asked them to do with a little finer point on it this afternoon. Last month, y'all adopted a resolution to not use the new assessment model that we'll be going into in the spring for school grades and for teacher performance and for their evaluations. The value-added model is one component of it, assesses teachers, but our CAS system in Clay County, the way we assess our instructional personnel, the VAM is a very small part of that. We have multiple assessments that we can pull student growth and other data from to use to really assess how our instructors are doing. So I just wanted to let you guys be assured that the issues that are with VAM that other counties are having that you probably have heard about are not as devastating to us, because we've got sharp people, teachers and administrators, that designed us a very good teacher evaluation tool. We were one of the first ones in the state 2 years ago to have our teacher evaluation system adopted. So I asked our legislators to look for areas where they could support legislation this coming session to mitigate the harmful effects that using the assessment before it's been field tested and baselined properly, which it has not yet, before we've had time to get the sample items, which we have not had sufficient time in anybody's estimation to really prepare our teachers so that they can prepare our kids. Just to, let's get it baseline, take a year, and move forward after that. And the other thing I asked them to be prepared to do was help us with some capital needs. We have some very old school buildings. We have some academies that are doing great, but we have some lagging infrastructure and capital needs. I gave you guys last month a copy of our old legislative priorities. I'm waiting with bated breath to hear from any of you. Please send me your priorities, and I'll try to assemble them and bring them back to you in January and prioritized. And I'll put that in a staffing mechanism where you can see where we're going instructionally and try to assess those priorities against that so it all makes sense. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Van Zandt. The next item on the agenda is D2, approve advertising amendments of the school board policy 6GX-10-1.02. But before we take that up, I do have a speaker card on this item by Mr. Travis Christensen. I'm sure I don't know if he's still here. Is he outside?
He told me on the break that he was bored and he thought he would go home.
Wow.
We should take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Hey, it's nice to get back to a
Okay.
boring meeting.
All right. So let it be stated for the record that Mr. Christensen has left. So we'll put that one over there. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Discussion.
Who wants to start? You want me to start? Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Ms. Karakis, go ahead. Yeah.
We had said that we wanted to review page 6, which was 9, procedures for citizen participation. And I think the discussion at our December 8th special meeting was, I had asked everybody to look at it because I think it's important to keep in. Section 9A, I understand it falls under a statute that you can't restrict or limit public comment. The public is entitled to speak on any agenda item and also fill out a green card, which is 3 minutes. And these are two different things. The one that I'm concerned about is the scheduled citizens request. And because that is something that we don't have to have in our policy, we chose to have it in our policy, then we can set parameters on that. We can say that, like we did a year or two ago, we're only going to have 3 10-minute speakers instead of unlimited, because we had a meeting where we had 14. We can limit that. We can set parameters. We can state that a scheduled citizens request, which is something that we have chosen as a board to write a policy on, to add to our policy, that we can say the parameters are that it has to be educationally relevant. And with that being said, I went and did a little research, and unfortunately I left all but one, but I pulled up board policy from other districts, and for some reason I only have the Lee County one with me. But even in their policy, it says that presenters shall confine their remarks to educationally relevant issues. It goes on to talk about abusive comments and things of that, how they'll be removed and removed physically from the meeting. But there were many districts that have that in. Of the ones that have a 10-minute presentation, some are 5-minute presentations. Most districts don't have that. It's just the statute of each citizen being able to, public comment at the end of the meeting. That's what most districts have, is presentation from the audience. They don't have scheduled citizens request, which we do, and I think because we do have it, we certainly are allowed to set parameters. That does not fall under the statute. And so I would like to ask that I'm perfectly fine with, leaving Section A crossed out, because that does fall under statute.
Right.
But Section B, number 1, I would like us to leave it in there that it have to be educationally relevant, the 10-minute speakers. Like tonight, we had 2 great presentations that actually affect our students and our classroom. It was an open mic at the school board. So that's my concern, and that's why I would like to leave in Section 1 under B.
Okay.
I would
Ms.
like to
Gilhausen?
just make a suggestion. If we are going to leave some of that language, I would say that the "are not political in nature" needs to be stricken, because that's very subjective. Whether or not it's educational is pretty obvious if it has to do with school district business, but everything is political. You can't really regulate, that's political, you can't say that. That's not political, so you can say that. That's very subjective. So I think that puts a lot of unnecessary responsibility and liability on our board chair to determine whether somebody's speech is political in nature. So if we are going to amend it, then I would say that bit of it definitely needs to be taken out.
And I'd be fine with that. I think just making sure that the topic is educational, academically relevant is very important.
Okay.
Let me be clear on this, Ms. Gilhausen. So what you're saying is you would say the blue, starting with request, just go through and then put a period after community. Is that what you're? Okay, that sounds good. I think Ms. Kirikas brought out a good point, and it's important for the new board members to understand. We had been given advice, legal advice on this in past months, but I think y'all see the difference here. There's such a difference in the scheduled citizens request and the presentations from the audience. When they get up at the end or of the meeting, on those 3 minutes, they literally can talk about, whatever. And it's kind of 3 minutes to just get it out. But the 10-minute request, then the reason we went back to the 3, only having 3 of those, is because we sat here 2 or 3 hours before on 10-minute speakers. But those 10-minute requests is a little bit above and beyond, and the school board decided to do that because sometimes, just like the nurses and the sub-teacher presentation tonight, they just couldn't get it to us in a 3-minute time period. So on those 10 minutes, not to be confused with the 3 minutes, we can do the restrictions on it. It is legal. We're certainly within our rights to do that, and I'm comfortable, with that.
I would say that in this, if we're striking what we said we were going to strike in Section A, like you said, that gives citizens the opportunity to say their piece, and then reserves the 10-minute slot for what would be deemed educational relevant topics.
Okay.
I'll move that we amend B1 to state any persons or group desiring to address the school board shall file with the superintendent a request to be placed on the agenda at least 14 days prior to a meeting. Requests made pursuant to this section shall be limited to topics which are directly related to achieving the educational goals of the Clay County or School District of Clay County and are of general interest. So that should say or are of and or are of general interest to the educational community, period. Such requests to make scheduled citizens presentations shall contain the following.
Okay, so I have a motion to amend our base motion, and basically, Ms. Condon just stated that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon, and I'm going to state this again, just for Mrs. Bush's benefit. I have a motion to amend the base motion under section, what section are we in?
9.
We are section 9B,
1.
I'm sorry, B1.
9B1.
9B1. And I'll just read it again. Any person or group desiring to address the school board shall file with the superintendent a written request to be placed on the agenda at least 14 days prior to a meeting. Requests made pursuant to this section shall be limited to topics which are directly related to achieving the educational goals of the school district of Clay and are of general interest to the education community, period. Such request to make a scheduled citizen presentation shall contain the following.
Very good.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion to amend carries 5-0. All right, we are back to the base motion. Is there any further discussion on the base motion?
I'm confused. We amended it so that takes away the first motion.
No, we still have the base motion.
The whole thing.
The whole
Right,
thing.
I'm
So if there is no other discussion on the base motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0. And let me read that motion. I guess, do I need to read that motion again, or do you have it, Ms. Bush? The main motion. Okay, all right, we are all set on that. Okay, very good. Okay, next item is D3, public hearing to approve as advertised amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-1.03, the Superintendent of Schools. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak to this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. I'll bring it back to the board. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Gilhousen
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Condon. Any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, motion carries 3-2 with Mrs. Karakis and Mrs. Studdard descending. Okay. All right, the next item is item C7. This was pulled from the consent agenda. Proposed allocation changes for 2014-2015, Ms. Karakis.
I pulled this because I'm opposed to the position being created of a coordinator of communications for $61,985. And I don't agree with us creating more positions in a time when we have budget restraints, and I don't think this is in the best interest of the children of Clay County.
If I might make a comment. After meeting with staff, it's my understanding that what we're voting on reflects a savings to our budget of $13,750.
Savings.
That would be the whole thing together. I'm talking about one position on here.
The one position in.
So I am,
Okay, Ms. Condon, you look like you had something to...
My understanding was that it replaced a different position, that it was not an additional position.
That's my understanding as well.
right, and it's a position that we probably should have kept, that intergovernmental and relations position, which is our liaison with the county commissioners, and I think doing away with that position was very foolish, and creating this new one does not make good sense to me.
Okay. Ms. Studdard.
Just so, this is just for the benefit of the two new board members. We used to have a, I don't even know what the title was, public relations, whatever. It was a coordinator 2 job, I believe. That was done away with. We came in, we had someone hired, and then a position was opened up in support services, and they were moved over there, and there was a 10,000 or so increase in salary. Then that position now has been deleted, and we've come back over. And what the bottom line is we've got a coordinator 1 position now at 61.9. So it's just, there's been a lot of changes over the last couple years.
Okay, Mr. Van Zandt, I think he had a
Well,
slide that he
here's the
wanted.
bottom line, if the board, the public, whoever would like to look at it. By combining the duties of the public relations officer, which when I took office, the public relations officer was making a little over $72,000 a year as a coordinator too. Planning and
So been here
intergovernmental.
many years.
Excuse me, Ms. Studdard, please do not interrupt. You do not have the floor.
The bottom line is not how long somebody's been here, it's what they're actually doing that meets the needs, the current needs of the school district, and those change daily. Those change through state law, those change through the Department of Education. We have to be a more agile, adaptive school district than we ever have in the 16, 17 years I've been paying very close attention to this. So the public relations job, the planning and intergovernmental relations job, all the duties, all the things that need to happen for this district to create good things for our staff and our students every day are happening, and that's happening at a cost savings to this school board. As we move into an interim period with our attorney, if you annualize the cost savings by all the legal services, planning and governmental relations, and public relations and communications that we're getting right now, they're annualized at a cost savings of $152,000. The board will, of course, review allocations as you always do in the spring, and you'll allot how many ever allocations you give, and I will staff them with highly qualified people as I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Zandt. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this item. We already had a motion, I'm sorry. Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Mrs. Karakis and Ms. Studdard dissenting. Okay. All right, next item up is C8, Personnel Consent Agenda, which was also pulled by Ms. Karakis. I'll entertain a motion. Let's have the motion first.
I'll
before
move
discussion.
approve.
Okay, I have a motion for approval,
I'll second.
and I have a second. Okay, let's have some discussion.
I pulled this because of the job description for the Director of Business Affairs, which will now be called Chief Financial Officer, a Director 1 position instead of the Assistant Superintendent of Business Affairs. And I can't stress it enough how concerned I am with the change to this job description. Everything is identical except for one line that's taken out, and it's under the required qualifications. And this, to me, is crucial, and I hope the new board members are really listening. It removes the sentence that says, number 2 on the required qualifications, minimum of 5 years successful administrative experience with responsibilities related to the financial business operations of a school district or comparable government experience. The new job description ends there. It removes with operating budgets in excess of $150 million annually. Our budget is $312 million with Dr. Copeland, is our operating budget $224 million, somewhere in that range? So it's crucial that that stay in there, that we hire somebody that has experience handling budgets at least in excess of $150 million. That is why I pulled it, because this frightens me that this is being dumbed down for whatever reason. It's crucial to leave that in there. And I thought this needed to be brought to the board's attention, and we need to review it and discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess I'll go next. Actually, I'm glad you pulled it. Thank you, Ms. Karakis, because if you hadn't, I was going to pull it as well. I did have some discussion with the superintendent on this. That was my very first. It was like, to me, it was a big red flag. My concern also was around this, the governmental experience piece. We have a lot of funding that's in different buckets, and I think I really wanted to understand what that governmental piece was, and I think that it's critical here's my philosophy. My philosophy is that the chief financial officer next to the CEO is probably one of the most critical, if I could use that word, one of the most critical roles that we have. In our district, we're currently facing a major some financial challenges, and I just don't think I'm comfortable with taking a risk of downgrading this position from an assistant superintendent to a director, I believe it was, to a director one. And here's the reason why, is because much like a CEO, a CFO has to be regarded in the highest esteem. He has to have that clout when he is dealing with, you know, this district. And I think to downgrade it to a director one, I don't know, you use the word dumbing down. I don't want to say the word, I don't want to say dumbing down, but I understand what the superintendent is trying to do. He is really trying to be creative and look for ways to help us, you know, save money and cut costs, and I fully appreciate that, especially as somebody in the business community. I do appreciate that, and we need to find areas where we can cut costs, but not this area. This is not one that I am comfortable with doing, and so I was not comfortable. I really thought about it. I thought about the pros and the cons, and I think I came away at the end of the day just not comfortable with this, with the downgrade.
Madam Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Studdard.
When I saw this, you're not going to believe this, Ms. McKinnon, we're going to agree on something. This was appalling when I saw it, because you, and I think the board members, now that you've been to Tampa, you realize the school finance is an animal. I mean, it is an island unto itself. It is such a complicated, just trying to understand the formula, you know, for funding students. But when you've got $312 million total budget and an operating budget of $225 or whatever, you have to rely on your finance guy or gal, as it's been in the past. It is so complicated, and it takes so many, really years to really get your teeth into this. I'm very confident in who we have now in Dr. Copeland. I've not worried a bit. And as Ms. McKinnon said, we are in a very critical period as far as the budget goes and trying to get back, and we have a plan so that by the end of next year we'll be back to our 3% if we can just keep it in the road here. But to think that this position would be downgraded to a Director 1, which would put him or her in line with, you know, maybe a dozen other Director 1s. I'm sure Ms. McCabe would give y'all who the different Director 1s are, but you'll see the difference if you'll just see what the positions are. But I think for the good of the school district, sometimes you cut off your nose to spite your face here. You can't sacrifice quality when you're dealing with something this serious. We have this type of budget. A person who is probably, I'm guessing, there's probably 35 people or so in the areas under him. You would have this person as a Director 1. It does not make sense. I just cannot support this in any way.
Yes, Ms. Condon.
So I do have a concern. I hear everything, and I do appreciate the superintendent's attempt to do things more efficiently and effectively. My concern is if we don't approve this tonight, and I don't know if we can amend it, I don't know if that's within our rights, but if we don't approve this tonight and we delay it another month, then that's another month that we aren't looking for a replacement when we know that Dr. Copeland wishes to retire. So that is my concern, that we might run up against that. And I may be speaking out of turn, but...
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Van Zant.
I'm comfortable advertising Dr. Copeland's job that he's been in and done such a fine job at all these years as an assistant superintendent for business affairs. Again, board member superintendent communication. This agenda's been out there for a week. The backup's been out there several days. If you'd communicate with me, I'd be glad to make adjustments. I do need to go ahead. A lot of George's large family has congregated in Texas, and his wife is retired, and so I will be advertising for an assistant superintendent of business affairs. That'll go on the street in the morning. No sweat. But I know we're below 3%. Ms. Adams and Dr. Copeland and I had lengthy discussions about the three of us interviewing people and seeing there are like-sized districts with directors that do this. It's not impossible if we found the right person. My objective was not to dumb this down, but to broaden the candidate pool. We had a very dumbed-down job description that we got Dr. Copeland on, and that's worked out very well. But if you want to micromanage CFOs in Florida or directors of business affairs or assistant superintendents of business affairs with EFP and FTE experience, those guys are kind of hard to find. And if we didn't find the one at the director one willing to work at that level, I was looking for a mid-career guy, because I'm kind of a mid-career guy or gal that would be with me for a while. But really, it's okay if you pick up the phone and tell me, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, and I hear that from a couple of you, you know, I'll make adjustments in that direction.
I'll amend the motion on the floor that we approve the personnel consent agenda with the deletion of this job description.
Okay, I have a motion to amend the personnel consent agenda with, to approve the consent agenda with the deletion of this job description. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Karakis and a second by Ms. Studdard. Any further discussion?
Yeah, let me ask one more thing. I was trying, it's on a different subject. Why don't we, I just get really nervous when I keep seeing administrator on assignment, director on assignment. This is, Ms. Adams, this is just to have that slide in case we need them. Is that correct? It's not that there's not going to be anyone in these?
Excuse me, Ms. Studdard, we're on the motion to amend. That's the discussion.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
If we delete this job description, how long does that delay your ability to...
It doesn't, because there is already a job description there for Dr. Copeland. This just, yeah.
Keeps the existing one
Right.
in effect. And then we would be approving the consent agenda, which of course needs to be done.
Correct. Okay, any further discussion? So I have a motion to amend the personnel consent agenda to approve the personnel consent agenda and delete this current job description.
I just want to say one thing, that I do understand the importance of the role of the financial person for the district, but I also trust the judgment of Dr. Copeland, of Ms. Adams, and the superintendent, and so I feel like they need to have that flexibility. And what a job description has in it, we all know that most people end up doing way different things than what their actual job description says. And qualifications, you know, I can see actually positives of having this job description in place, because it offers an opportunity for advancement for someone maybe in their mid-career who would be willing to come into our school district, maybe only has the 5 years experience, doesn't have 20 years experience, but when they have 10, 15, 20 years experience, that we could provide them a promotion and not lose them to another district. And so that's just my feeling on it.
Well, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and say this, that, my big concern about downgrading this is primarily having to do with the salary, because it is a big drop in salary. And I went out and I actually looked at salaries of CFOs around the United States, as well as CFOs right here in Jacksonville. And I can tell you that the salary that is offered at a Director 1 is nowhere near what a average or even below average CFO would get paid. And so really what I'm saying is that with Dr. Copeland, we have gotten a great deal. I won't mention all of these salaries, but the median salary for a CFO on U.S. national averages is up around the $300,000 a year. When you look just in Jacksonville, Florida, it's not much different. And that's the median. And what that means is that 50% of the CFOs get that much or higher and 50% get less. But the average is still way more than what we're paying. So my concern with that is that we want the best possible, the most highly qualified person in this particular role. And I'm not saying that we won't get that. But I'm just saying I think it's critical that we have that qualification in there, because we do want to attract, from a recruiting perspective, we want to attract those highly qualified people. So that was my big concern, primarily with the downgrading of the responsibility part of it, going from an assistant superintendent, which carries a lot of clout, down to a Director 1, as well as the huge reduction in pay. And I know, again, I understand that is primarily to do with cost savings, and I appreciate that. But I think there are other areas that we can go look at, but in my opinion, not this one. Yeah. So that's all I have to say.
Well, may I say something?
Okay.
I just want to say,
one more. Yep.
Keep in mind how crucial it is to have experience working with large budgets of $150 million and up. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that we are getting somebody who has that experience, because, finances are crucial. Thank you.
If I might just make one last comment. I feel like it's especially important for such a time as this. We are really in a situation with our budget, and I think that bringing somebody in that doesn't have the level of expertise that Dr. Copeland has would be a disservice to the taxpayers. We may be saving on one end, but we may lose on the other.
Exactly. And also, you think about the larger message that it really sends. I mean, we've sent the message that we are going to do everything we can to get our fund balance back, and I'm not saying that we don't go do this in the future, but you're right. For such a time as this, I just don't think now is the right time. I think we need to stay focused, and we need that experience. We need to maintain that experience level to help us get there. So, okay, so everybody's had a chance to comment. We have a motion to amend, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
The motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Condon dissenting. Okay, so now we're back to the main motion, adoption of the personnel consent agenda. I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen. I think we already had a motion and a second. Yeah. Okay, so I believe we did. Okay, we did, yes. Okay, so if there's no further discussion there, all those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Condon dissenting. Thank you. Okay. Next item is item C10, which was also pulled from the consent agenda, revised Section 1, Table 1, title of position for administrative, management, and supervisory personnel salary schedules. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Condon. Discussion.
I pulled this again for the same reason. Coordinator of Communications, a Coordinator 1 position. Again, I don't agree with us creating this position, and I certainly don't agree with it being a Coordinator 1 position when our Public Relations Officer was a Coordinator 2 position. So again, we're talking about wanting to save money and cut corners, and I think this is something that we should not have done. So in good conscience, I just could not let it slide by.
May I speak, Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Condon.
My understanding is that this position has been in place since the budget was approved in October, probably before that, and that the only reason that this salary schedule is even on our agenda for approval is because they have a routine where they go through and update and make sure that all of our policies are in place and that things are reflected, and that on 11/18/2014, that's all that happened, was that she was the person whose job it is to maintain this table, made sure the table was up to date on her schedule.
May I say something?
Yes, Ms. Carrick.
That's because we approved that job description on 11/18, so it had to be added. This is not something that's been on the books all along. This is a newly created position, as the superintendent just told us at the last item, that he's combined 2 positions. So that's why this has been added, because it is a new position that needed to go on. And I personally am not in agreement with it, so that's why I pulled it. Thank you.
Okay, my understanding, again, is that this was a new job description that we approved at the last meeting. This does not result in any kind of a change in salary or anything like that. So, I don't see an issue with it. Any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Condon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Karakis and Ms. Studdard dissenting. Okay. All right. Next item is item D4, Human Resources Special Action. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Studdard and a second by Ms. Karakis. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Next item is D5, public hearing to approve as advertised amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-2.03, Human Resources Position Availability. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this matter? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Any discussion?
I'll just say again that I'm not in agreement with changing this policy.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, yes, ma'am, Ms. Gilhousen.
I had the opportunity to meet with staff over the past week, and what I kept hearing over and over again is that there's no objection to reviewing policy or changing policy. I just think and what I'm hearing is that it needs to be done in a collaborative way that is done in consultation with staff and the people whose jobs are affected on a daily basis by these policies. Making sure that they know that their opinion is heard and valued, and we do it in a way that's collaborative. So that's my issue with this policy. Is what I'm hearing is that the district staff felt like they didn't get the opportunity to be heard on these issues and wanted to have more input on it. So I think that dialing it back to what it was previously, and then if you want to look into policy revision, I'm not opposed to that, but let's do it in a collaborative way that it's inclusive of district staff, it's inclusive of all board members, and we can look at it together and decide what works best for everybody.
May I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
The reason that this policy was written was because we were not reviewing policies. The whole time that I'd been on the board and the 5 years that I sat here watching, they never reviewed policies. Now, granted, things that were changed as per statute were updated, but policies were not gone through. And that's why this was put in there, so that we would be in compliance with the 2-year annual review that the school board is tasked with doing. So that was the reason for it. And it was, at the time, the board thought it would be a good idea to break it down by each different department to really get an understanding of what our policies are. So I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, that people didn't feel like they were included in it because it's not been done.
Okay, thank
Actually-
you, Ms. Karakis. Ms. Condon?
Actually, if I could clarify that last week at our special meeting on Monday, Mr. Bickner actually agreed with the removal of this policy, saying that upon reflection and discussion with staff, that they actually were completing the required statutory review.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion for approval and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Ms. Studdard, I didn't get, was yours?
I voted aye.
Okay. Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Karakis dissenting. Okay. All right. Moving right along. Next item is item D6, public hearing on the charter school agreement with Florida Charter Educational Foundation, Incorporated. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to comment or have any discussion on this item? Okay, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to a board. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Karakis and a second by Ms. Gilhausen. Any discussion? Okay, there's no discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving right along. Next item is D7, public hearing to approve as advertised amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-5.02A, Business Affairs Purchasing. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this item? Okay, public hearing is closed. I'll bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Condon, a second by Ms. Gilhausen. Any discussion?
I can't support this because most of the language it's fine with me, but the number 6, it undid exactly the reason that it was ever put in to start with, and so for that reason, I will not support this.
May I speak?
Yes, Ms. Condon.
I actually got a phone call from one of our 41 principals, and I will not name who that was, but who specifically called me to ask me to approve this policy, and I'm not sure if this person called any of their other board members, but what this person said was they used the words unintended consequences. And I remember when this policy was brought to the board when I was a private citizen, and a number of people asked the board not to approve it, and I don't know what all their positions were within the district, but they felt like it was going to hinder their ability to do their work efficiently and effectively, and indeed that is what this principal has told me has happened. And they use the words unintended consequences. They recognize that the board was not intending to do that for them, and so I just and then I was reading back through. We went to training, so buckle your seatbelts because we're trained now. So
Hey, you've started. You have started.
We had our ethics training on Friday, December 5th, and I was reading back through the materials that they gave us because they gave us so many. And in July 11th, 1958, our U.S. Congress actually passed a Code of Ethics for Government Service, including office holders, and number 4 on that, or Roman numeral 4, says, seek to find and employ more efficient and economical ways of getting tasks accomplished. And so when I got that phone call, it just struck me that that's what we're being asked to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Ms. Condon. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhausen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Karakis and Ms. Studdard dissenting. Okay. All right, we are going to move all the way down to, because we've already done 9, 10, 11, and 12, we will move down to item D13, the monthly financial report.
I think there's one other.
D8.
D8.
I'm sorry, did I miss one?
Yes.
I am so sorry. D8. Okay, public hearing to approve as advertised the amended notice of tax for school capital outlay for 2014 and 2015 school year. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to comment? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Studdard, a second by Ms. Karakis. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now we are on to item D13, monthly financial report.
I'm sorry, it's a 13. I hope that doesn't mean it's unlucky.
No.
December is a critical month for us because we receive the third calculation. That calculation, in my estimation, my experience, will probably come in Friday.
Okay.
It is my intent to study that and report to Ms. Adams and the superintendent before I leave on Christmas holidays, so we'll know the full effect of it. I don't know the full effect of it at this time. I know what I'm counting on. And anything less than what I'm counting on, I'll let some others carry the burden of that over the Christmas holidays. We've got our fingers crossed. I am concerned that throughout the state, there are increases that come to school districts based on audits, prior period adjustments, FTE count in October, and the state does not have the kind of money that I fear is required for 100% funding. As we completed the budget process and the second calculation in July, there was already a proration, which means at that point that the property tax was not going to be sufficient to carry its burden of the total financing for the FEFP. So now we come and we come to the third calculation. My hopes are that we will be in great shape. We want to go forward with our fund balance towards the 3%. We're working at that very hard. Anything less than 2.58, we need to make some significant adjustments in my recommendation. The other funds are doing fine. The savings for Mr. Merrill will help him in his budget based on the refinancing of the COPs of $1.5 million over the remaining life of those bonds. I am concerned about one other fund, and that's the self-insured fund. It's also called 711. That funding comes from a number of sources, primarily from the general fund for workers' compensation. I have underfunded that, and I have told the board that for a couple of years, because if I fund it at its capacity and its need, then that's going to create a greater expense in the general fund, which we can't do. So future persons, people, individual, they need to look at that. And I'm reminding the board, we need to look at that because that fund balance in that fund is based on actuarial analysis. And we need to be at that level. Everything else is fine. We're doing okay. I'm sure Mr. Merrill could use more money. And hopefully in the future his budget will not have to absorb some of the deficiencies we have in the general fund. So that's my report. I will, in January, we'll have a more significant review.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Copeland? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion by Ms. Gilhausen.
We had one.
I don't think we...
Second.
Just to discuss it, we had one.
On the financial report?
Thought we did.
No. We have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Studdard. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. And that brings us down to presentations from the audience. Do we have any people in the audience that would like to speak for 3 minutes? Nope. Oh, they didn't have a card in. Okay. All right. Superintendent requests.
Very proud of this school district. We've had a great first semester. Thank you for those that work here and are staying here to continue to support even in the board meetings. We appreciate you very much. Please relay my thanks and a very warm Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and just take some time to recharge your own batteries, and we're going to hit the ground running here in January again. Look forward to seeing you, some of you, in the morning at the principals meeting.
All right. Board member requests? School board requests? Ms. Studdard?
Just tell everybody happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and it's been a busy month. We've started judging science projects at the schools. My Rotary Club did Orange Park Junior last week, and so we're off to the races. It'll be back to the County Science Fair soon, I guess. But I do hope everyone has safe travels, and Merry Christmas.
Ms. Gilhousen?
I had the pleasure of attending the Florida Youth Challenge Academy's graduation this afternoon, and it was such a blessing to see what these young children with these challenges that they've overcome and the accomplishments that they've made. It was very inspiring. I really enjoyed that. And last week I got to be at the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new Culinary Arts Academy at Keystone Heights High School, and that's very exciting. Their facility is phenomenal. It's up to grade with what you would expect at any commercial restaurant. It's very impressive. So I'm very proud. I'll echo your comments of our school district and the things that we're accomplishing academically, and hope everybody has a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Ms. Karakis.
Before I do that, I'd like to remind you, as chair, that we need to choose for Florida School Board Association, our legislative liaison. I've done it the last 4 years, and I would prefer if somebody stepped up and maybe somebody new.
Okay. Yep. Do you have anything else? I'll get to that when I get down
yeah,
here.
I will go ahead and give my closing. Like Mrs. Studdard, Science Fair has begun. I judge the Orange Park Junior and Fleming Island Elementary, and we have some really bright students out there. I'd like to say congratulations to all our teachers and administrators and staff on our VAM scores. Job well done. We're really proud of you, and I'd like to just say thank you again tonight to the nurses that presented. They did a wonderful job, and they really opened up my eyes as to what's going on in our district. And on that note, I'll just wish everybody a very safe, healthy, happy Merry Christmas and New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Condon?
Okay, I'd like to say congratulations to all of our spelling bee participants and winners. All of our 5th through 8th graders have been going through spelling bees at all of their individual schools, and the way that those students are chosen, they are one of the top 10 spellers in their grade level, and then they participate in their spelling bee. And spelling is an intriguing phenomenon to me, because you have a good speller has really no correlation to intellect, but can appear to. If you are a bad speller, you can appear to have very low intellect. And so I congratulate all of those participants and the winners, and we will not meet again before they have their county-wide spelling bee on January 13th, so I would like to wish them all good luck. Additionally, I'd like to say good luck to, and hopefully today went well for all of our junior high and high school students who are taking their exams this week, and then the rest of our students who are finishing up their round 2 of Performance Matters testing. My own children have been going through those things, and things are tense in our household, so I'm sure they are out there as well, and hopefully they're all getting into bed now and finishing up studying for the night. As Ms. Gilhousen mentioned, we attended the ribbon cutting Culinary Arts at Keystone Heights High School. They actually opened that facility in August when the school year began, but they had their ribbon cutting, and they had planned for this event for months and months. And their teacher, Mrs. Piantata, who is just a phenomenal instructor in one of our academies, was ill all week, and so she did not get to be there. And I just have to say, Mrs. Fisher, who has been a longtime substitute in the Keystone area, Keystone is very different than in a lot of the areas in the county. There's a lot of trouble to get substitutes to work there, especially with the requirement for a bachelor's degree in teaching. And so Mrs. Fisher has been a longtime substitute, and she handled that preparation. She was there for 2 days with those kids and handled their preparation, and it was just a beautiful event. So I would like to commend the students, Mrs. Piantata for preparing them, and Mrs. Fisher for taking over as if nothing had happened differently than it was planned, and so I would just congratulate them. I'd also like to congratulate one of my very favorite ESE teachers in all of our district, Mrs. Judy Burleson, who will actually absolutely kill me if she finds out I said her name here, but she retired last week, and she had a phenomenal way of connecting with high school students and getting them to do things that probably no one else would have them do, and she is going to be very missed at Keystone Heights High School. In fact, they tried every way they could to get her to stay on, but she's going to enjoy some grandchildren time. And then finally, this is the time of year that we look forward to the new year, and we look back on the previous year. And so I wanted to challenge a few paradigms tonight. And as been referenced tonight, we had our training at the Florida School Board Association meeting at the beginning of this month, and one of the things that they handed out was standards for school board member boardsmanship. And certainly this is nothing that we are required to meet, but it is it's a lengthy document. I wrote on this copy. I made a copy. I laminated my official copy because it's so valuable. But there were a few things that I wanted to mention as we go forward into 2015. There were some things on here. One of those was bring about desired changes through legal and ethical procedures, upholding and enforcing all laws, State Board of Education rules, and court orders pertaining to schools. And it just struck me that nothing in there says anything about emotions. And sometimes we can make decisions based on emotions, but I would just challenge that we not do that. Secondly, it says recognize that decisions must be made by the board as a whole, and that when made, these decisions must be supported by the entire board. And that's a difficult one I would struggle with, because I know that we always don't agree. But I do believe that we all have the best intentions, and that we don't take negative tension off of the dais, and I appreciate that. The next one that I mentioned, and it was just it's the second to the last one, so I'll be quick, but it's work with the superintendent, neither undermining nor intruding into the areas legally assigned to school administration. I want us to really stay true to that. And then the final one. Remember always that my first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of all the students attending our public schools, and that we must provide appropriate curriculum facilities and motivation so that our students will be encouraged to love learning, enabling them to achieve their fullest and highest potential. So, with that.
Outstanding. Wow. Okay. All right, so just a couple things. As Ms. Carrick has said, I did want to go ahead and, with respect to getting the board's consent on the FSBA legislative liaison, I was working on graduation and district committee assignments, and that was one of them, and I didn't realize when I was looking at the one that we had for last year, the date on it was February, so I just thought that we had until February to get it done, and I was kind of working through that. But anyway, I had offered to do that, so I would like to do that. If anybody has any objection to that, I would be... Okay, so I'll go ahead and take that assignment, and then we have to notify the FSBA who that person is going to be. Who does that? Okay, Ms. Bush, or Ms. Bush will take care of that. Okay, yes. The person that I had actually had I thought you would be the alternate. Okay.
I'm on the committee out there anyway.
That's
so
what
I'll
I'm
be
thinking.
part of it.
So
I'll
I'm
be your
thinking that if
alternate.
I have questions, I can come to you. Okay, all right. So I'll be the primary, and Ms. Karakas will be the alternate. And then the rest of these assignments, I'll go ahead and get them done and get them out to you the next meeting. The other thing that I just wanted to say is that I also today had the great privilege and honor of attending the FLICA graduation. And when I took the chairmanship, I wasn't really sure if that was going to be I wasn't quite aware of all the blessings that come with this role, and I experienced one of the greatest blessings today by having the privilege and honor of being up on the stage and handing these young cadets and students their diplomas. And one of the things that impressed me the most about these candidates is that every single one of them looked me in the eye, and when they shook my hand. And it's unfortunate, but you don't see a lot of that today with some of our students. They have a difficult time looking you right in the eye. And these cadets, I mean, they were, I just think that what they accomplished was just incredible. And as I was watching them do their drills, it was very, very reminiscent of my boot camp graduation. And so I know that they've been through a lot, and I could completely identify with each and every one of them from where they started to what they went through and to where they came, you know, where they ended up. And it was very, very moving. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get to the other ones, but this was my first one. But it was just incredible. And it was really moving. And so I'm going to do my very best to get to every single one of them after that. And with that, the last thing I'd like to say is I just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we will hopefully see everybody back here next year. And with that, attorney requests?
I just would urge everybody during the holiday seasons be careful about drunk drivers out there. I attended a safety meeting and I saw some really disturbing statistics on youth and texting and the level of danger on the road. So it's a dangerous place out there. I encourage everybody to be careful. Other than that, I would tell you Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, season's greetings, and Happy New Year.
All right. Thank you. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.